And here we go. We are live. Welcome. We have had some technical issues as usual because apparently Apple and Google are now in some type of horrific battle for supremacy. So Apple products and Google products are no longer working well together. That means YouTube and Apple products are not doing great together anymore. Let me check on something here. There we go. If anybody is out there, give me a comment. Let me know if the sound is okay or not, or if we have sound at all. We should have sound. Yeah, we should have sound. We're going to start with updates as usual. Next week, we have Austin. If you want to sign up for Austin, it is the Club and Mace seminar for the western half of the United States for this corner of the world, this half of the year. That will be a 2.5 day Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's on it in Austin. Go ahead, sign up. Go to the events page on Flowshala and sign up for Austin. After that, I will be teaching in Italy with Maurizio from Hydrocore and from the Hydra, the inventor of that. We will be doing that. Hello to Seat Set from Europe, just came online. Then I will be teaching a staff workshop June 23rd, 24th, 25th in Los Angeles at our new warehouse. We're still looking for names for the new warehouse. Currently, we're operating under Fort Kickass, but that's probably not like the best marketable, best name. So if anybody has any great ideas, the things that are going to be in that warehouse are going to be seminars from me, Wildman Athletica. Night FX, the special effects company, will be housing a metal shop and a car altering shop there. And Wes Fenton of Death Guild will be running an armor shop out of there for fully armored combat fighting as well. So there's going to be a lot of cool stuff. We just don't know what name, but think armored combat fighting, flamethrowers, blowing things up, and unchoreographed OODA loop staff training. So we're open to all ideas on that front. That should be good. Loud and clear. Sound is good. Is my picture good this time? I don't know. Last time my picture said that it was good, and it was absolutely awful when I watched the replay. And I don't know if that's an upload issue after that's an issue, or if that is some type of connection issue. Obviously, I've gone outside today. It's beautiful. It's about 45, 50 degrees out here, but it's way better than being inside. We have a little mock setup here to make this work, but it's more fun than being inside. Let's just get right into it. We're going to get started on some questions. We have a loud and clear. Great Lakes Jira is on, loud and clear. Great Lakes Jira is an awesome company. They provided me with my 70-pound club in the Monster Club series, and they have a giant pile of clubs, super heavy clubs. I'm writing training around those clubs right now. I've been writing training around the lighter clubs, thinking in the 3.5 to 50-pound range. The math that I have written for those programs starts to break down over 50 pounds. If you have like 1 pound jumps, you can continue up with that idea. But if the equipment for that is not currently available, so I wrote for equipment that people told me would be manufactured, but never ended up being manufactured. Great Lakes Jira, on the other hand, is making giant solid weight clubs. I have a 32 and they go up in, I think, 4K jumps, which is 8.8 pounds. So I'm going to write an entire series of monster programs around that because I want to do the 106. Just because it sounds fun and awesome. I've been doing clubs for 15 years now. You can always get better. You can either add more complexity or you can go to heavier weight. I've been adding complexity nonstop for about 3 years now, since the beginning of COVID. And I've been running lots of highly complex, long endurance based programs because that's what people had available to them. Now that manufacturing is going back up, I'm going to start writing some training around Great Lakes Jira's Monster Club series. And we're going to write a bunch of math and a whole series of ideas around that. I've been experimenting with those ideas for the last couple of weeks, but I'm going to try and get my hands on a whole set of the Great Lakes clubs at the LA warehouse. It's also so I can put them in the hands of like armored fighters and see what they think of them. Awesome. Excellent. Ryan Cahala. You guys know I'm not great at pronouncing names. We're going to do our best. Question, Tetris of training. Thank you for the labeling. How would you Tetris rock climbing, kettlebell swing program, kettlebell clean and press program, basis of strength? Also, can I work on Fort Kick-Ass for minimum wage? If you're in Southern California and you want to come to Fort Kick-Ass and work for minimum wage, I'm sure we can organize that. Absolutely, for sure. In Fort Kick-Ass, we're going to finally have enough space to do all the stuff I want to do. I would like to build some old Shaolin training ideas, like taking wooden dummies and putting them in 4 directions so that you can work on the traditional actual footwork the way it's meant to be worked on instead of with a single object. And I would like to make it so that wooden dummies and heavy bags can alternate places. We're going to eventually build a grid on the ceiling for that because there will be a grid up there anyway for lights, for filming, because you can shoot commercials in there, do whatever as well. So we should have the stability and the load to be able to do that. Also, I want my aerial rig back. I really want my aerial rig back. So if people want to show up and work for minimum wage, I'm sure we can organize something. Back to the Tetris of training question. Rock climbing. So rock climbing in this, there are a couple of things in here. Rock climbing, swing, clean and press, basis of strength. So swing, clean and press, basis of strength. That's a 6-day-a-week program right there. Your kettlebell swing is probably going to be the heavy one because it's going to rack up in weight the fastest, right? Your clean and press program is probably your medium program, your medium weight program in that equation. And your basis of strength is really probably going to be pushed into lighter weight, higher complexity. That is the point of the basis of strength program. It was designed around people having less access to weights, a lot of levels, a lot of complexity, less access to weight. Speech impediments are coming out. And then the unregulated effort in that equation is the rock climbing. So what time of day are you doing your rock climbing? I would do your swing program. I would stick to the short version of it, the 10-minute program, and rock up and wait. The same thing with the clean and press program. I would stick to the simpler levels of complexity to go up and wait because they have less overall time under tension. The swing program has a 10-minute section in it. It has a 15-minute option, a 20-minute option, and a 30-minute option. Stick to the 10-minute option would for sure be what I'm recommending. And this awesome truck is going by in the background. Look at that beauty. So you're probably going to want to work up and wait, but you don't want a lot of time under tension because rock climbing has unregulated times under tension. Depending if you're climbing on a wall, it's only so high, but you could be up there for who knows how long, depending on how you're picking your hands and how your transition is. But you could reverse that. You could have, so for the first thing we said, kettlebell swing heavy, clean and press light, basis of strength, clean and press medium, basis of strength light, and those should happen in the morning, and you would like to separate them from your rock climbing by probably at least 4 to 6 hours so that your hands will survive. And so if you're rock climbing after work, then it would be all of your other training before work to give you plenty of time to recover. You could, of course, flip that on the head and use basis of strength as the heavy, but then your swing program, it gets a lot less effective that way if you're combining it with something like rock climbing, because rock climbing is just brutally hard on the hands. For the most part, it's worse than aerial. It is quite possibly the worst thing on the hands that I can even think of. I did aerial for 10 years and I think rock climbing is psychotic. But that's just because I do not have the specific adaptation to the imposed demand of rock climbing. My hands are specifically conditioned for something like aerial. You'd have to cross condition. So if you are doing that program after your rock climbing, if you're trying to shove it all into like a 2-hour block of training after work, then you always do the thing that's going to kill you first. If you can separate them by 6 hours, do the weight stuff first. If you have to do them in the same block of training, do the rock climbing first, for sure. The rock climbing is the thing where your hands are going to fail and you're going to fall to your untimely death. So if you have to stack those on top of each other, same thing. Do the shorter versions of those programs, probably focusing more on heavy weight, and do them after, separated by at least 5 to 10 minutes from your rock climbing. Rock climbing is extremely hard, but it is brilliant. It's an infinite amount of unregulated pull, the same way that aerial is. It's very hard to run out of things to do with rock climbing, especially if you're doing something like a rock wall. You have your different colored routes, you have your different predictable routes, and then you can start to mix routes over time. And most good rock climbing gyms should alter their routes, once a month, once every 2 months, so you can continue to work on new problems and new ideas so that you're not just adapting to one basic thing. And you can hear the dogs barking. Excellent. Good question, Ryan. Thank you. KD, question. Please ramble for 5 minutes on what you have learned about fascia and fascia lines and how they relate to clubs and kettlebells. So fascia is the linking part. It's the stuff that holds your body together. So think of your muscle as like electric jelly, and it's inside of a bag, and that bag is tacked down to your bones. When you apply force to the electric jelly, it either gets shorter or it gets longer based on the signal, and then that pulls on the bones and operates the body. The fascia is all linked together, even though the muscles are separate. The fascia is the thing that ties everything together. Am I saying this right? Yeah. So you have all of your muscles are contained inside of fascia, and the fascia is a net that connects all muscles to each other. How well that moves, how well your fascia moves, determines how well you move as a person. I don't think I've ever talked about this on the channel before. I know a lot about this because I have been extremely injured many times and have had a lot of things like scar tissue, which interfere with the way that fascia works. I have seen a lot of cumulative injury cycle in various types of athletes, and a thickening of the fascia means that the electric jelly bags don't move as well next to each other. They bind on each other, and then that causes pain. That is part of the load shifting process that happens when people age, which eventually leads to a breakdown of the overall system that is the body. Fascia, incredibly important. If you go to the gym, a lot of guys, let me rephrase this. A lot of guys who go to the gym and they focus on their big three, their deadlift, to their back squat, and their bench, but they don't add something with rotation in it, over time get extremely, extremely tight fascia, and their body gets really bad at doing things like rotating. That is a generalization, of course. There are people who that doesn't happen to. There's a lot of factors in this type of training: environmental factors, nutritional factors, and recovery factors. People who've held a lot of tension for a long time for whatever reason, victims of violence, will have a thickening of the net in specific parts of the body, and that will restrict the way their body works. So there's a lot of theories on this. The great thing about this is, if you practice kettlebelling, for the most part, people start to mobilize their fascia. When you start practicing something like basis of strength, people mobilize their fascia. And that works for maybe 60-70% of people, just by adding in good exercise. If people have good nutrition, then their body will start to mobilize fascia. If people have had injuries, then there are oftentimes hitches in the fascia, and you can even see them visibly, like you see a lot in people's back underneath their scapula and things like that, and you will see those hitches. And then it will take some type of body worker or massage therapist or acupuncturist in order to mobilize that fascia. There are a lot of different techniques about mobilizing fascia from tons of different cultures. The mean one from Western is like rolfing, where they like knead and rip and apply a bunch of force to the fascia to try to break it down. It is incredibly painful, usually involves lots of screaming. A good body worker will be able to do this with their hands by tracking fascial lines throughout the body and finding the hitches in it, and then applying pressure in certain directions across the fibers of the muscle or across the body tissue in order to help it learn to move better again. Same thing, once again, the day after that, people tend to be extremely sore, and it tends to take a long time to get adaptation. Think of it like working out. You don't work out once and solve your problem. You don't bench press once and you're done. You bench press forever. Same thing is true of something like body work. Um, one of the things that we have people do is work on mobilizations because they're cheap and they can be done anywhere. And I have people focus on mobilizations with the most important parts of the body first, right? The neck, the shoulders, the hips, the spine, because if those things are mobilized and that fascia is moving equally well, then overall it works out better. People tend to get out of pain and feel better. Just by doing any kettlebell program, you tend to mobilize fascia. And then by any club program, doesn't have to be mine, could be almost anybody's if it's even halfway intelligent, and practicing something like shield cast and mills tends to help people mobilize their fascia by activating the muscle chains, which are connected by a fascial chain. Yeah, the reason I talk about something like kettlebells, clubs, and mace so heavily is that I don't really have to talk about fascia in order for people to get the benefit of fascial mobilization. By practicing just plain old basic, your neck, your shoulders, your hips, mobilizations, and then by practicing a structured progressive program with kettlebells, clubs, or mace, people tend to mobilize their fascia and they get rid of a lot of the adhesions or the sticking points in there for the most part. And then if that doesn't fully solve problems, then people should go see massage therapists, acupuncturists. My favorite is gua sha, which is like massage where they use an external object stronger than a thumb in order to drag and crush certain connective tissues inside your body. I've been injured a lot. My quads, my VMO, and my bad leg gets really locked up sometimes if I travel a lot. I haven't uh, gotten a good I haven't been on a good massage program in 3 years, so I've had to focus more on my movement as medicine as opposed to going heavier in weight, um, or doing more stuff and relying on a once a week, very good gua sha session in order to keep me recovered properly. But now that the world is sort of working again, and I'll be back in LA, I will be back to my gua sha practitioner once a week, every day, every time I'm there. I go see her because she keeps me alive. When you've been thrown off of horses, wrecked motorcycles, done a ton of martial arts, done aerial, done everything like that, you acquire a large series of damage to your myofascial net, and that's ages you. So you can fight aging by fighting that. Yeah, I can rant on that stuff forever. Uh, that was probably at least a 5-minute rant. And I can talk about that. We can talk about muscle chains, and myofascial net chains. So if you, what is it, anatomy trains, was like a breakdown of what muscles are connected across the body to work together. This is where the idea of like a lot of gym training started to fall apart. It's the same way, like, who was it? Was it Audrey Agassi? Was it Andre Agassi? Andre Agassi, the great tennis guy, the best tennis guy in the world in what, the 90s. was just incredible. And then he got in and he got a trainer and he started looking really good, but his performance crashed through the floor. And then he changed the way he trained and he went back to training movements instead of muscles, and his performance went back up. Anatomy Trains was kind of the book that started shepherding in that idea into the Western training world. People who did martial arts and circus always knew this. We always knew that training movements was more important than training muscles, but kind of Western training has been battling with, what do you want to call it? Ancient wisdom for a long time, right? The idea that a deadlift is somehow absolutely superior to an Atlas stone lift or to a Gata swing it's a very Western idea, and um, it's not inherently wrong. People who are good athletes at anything get better. The people who advocate for things like bench, back squat, and deadlift are also people who spend a lot of time doing movement training in sports. When you remove the sport aspect and the agility aspect of the training, then it tends not to work as well. So kettlebells, clubs, mace are always an integrated system. Just by practicing anything inside of those things, you will get a lot of movement training, which saves people a lot of time. I think of it more as like a common man, what do they call it? A layman's, instead of like a priestly class, right? Think of like the NFL or the NBA or any professional sport as a priestly class, and they spend 8 hours a day, 8 hours a day training. For the most part, they create superior athletes because they spend a lot more time and money on it. Whereas what I'm focused on is more of a lay person strategy. Somebody who works for a living, has a family, travels the world, and needs to maintain a good level of health and fitness and mobility for the most important things in the least amount of time. It'd be very much like layperson Shaolin, which is what I studied. Shield cast question from KD. I think KD's probably asking a bunch of questions from the Discord server as normal. What grip do we use for two-hand and one-hand shield clasp when the club is behind the back? Ice cream cone. Okay grip or ice cream cone grip. What fingers should be used and when for both hands? When you're going behind the head, you tend to relax the top part of your hand. It's the bottom part of your hand for the most part that is holding on. If you're using an on-it mace, there is no globe at the bottom of the mace, so you have to rely purely on squeeze grip. If you see a mace like, I believe, great like Jira's mace, have a stop at the end that allows people to get more to the ice cream cone grip. Ice cream cone means the tightness is at the bottom of the hand. When you come to an order position, then you are using the okay grip and squeezing with the top of your hand more. So your hand, when doing a shield cast, is not exerting equal pressure with all fingers all the time. You will not be able to endure. You cycle back and forth between sides of your hand, ice cream cone grip, okay grip, as the weight moves, so that one part of your hand is being spelled or getting a brief bit of respite. That's how people get more and more efficient. That is a lot of what happens in the basis of strength program. Once again, we don't talk about it a lot because it's not necessary to talk about it for people to get the benefit of it. When people are doing a swing to a stop, they have to squeeze their grip in order to keep the weight from slamming them in the face. When they're doing a balance exercise, they have to put their elbows in the right spot. When people are doing various versions of shield casts, they have to stop, put their elbow in the right spot, squeeze with the bottom part of the hand, the top part of their hand, and then balance out their load. The brain will do this on accident if you run the program with increasing weights. That's why we always recommend for every program at least 3 weights for every program. You don't have to do 10 or 20 weights, but 3 weights for the most part will improve people's ability to use their hands more, put their elbow in the right spot, their shoulder in the right spot, their core in the right spot, their foot in the right spot. As the weight gets heavier, this stuff becomes more important in the time that people push and pull for each individual movement pattern changes, which is what we want. People get a lot better at basic human skills on accident by doing those 3 weights and those programs being designed the way that they are. It is very, very nerdy. There's a lot of stuff that we don't talk about, frankly, because I don't want to write an extra 200 pages in every manual. That those manuals are already huge about things like that. But that's an excellent question. What type of grip do we use and when? And shield cast is one of your most important exercises. I used to think it was swing. Then I thought it was mill, but I think it might be shield cast. I talk about shield cast all the time, inside circle, outside circle, and shield cast, because those are the things you absolutely have to know to eventually get to mill and reverse mill. And mill and reverse mill use the myofascial chains of the body, ipsilateral and contralateral, which focus on making sure that everything works from the bottom of your foot all the way to your hand in a chain up through your body equally well. That is the great beauty of clubs. On it, if you just practice any basic program, that will happen. People will reintegrate their body because we have a large amount of problems in the modern world of people being disintegrated. Movements are disintegrated. We talk about this a lot. Standing up, walking, swinging weight, getting weight overhead, all of this stuff. We have a whole series of videos on that. We should probably make more. I never finished that series. I went on to teach and did not finish it, but we can talk about that stuff forever. Picture is pretty blocky. Sorry, guys. About that. That's the internet that we have. We are not in a city. We do not have the best internet. I tried to upgrade internet here. It literally just doesn't exist. KB question: how do you progress swing program when weight is okay, form stays okay, but cardio breaks down? Start, stop, 2 hand swings, 8 kilogram. Currently 16 reps. Peak heart rate 190 BPM and stays high for the rest between sets. Yeah. You drag your heart along. So when we're thinking about conditioning, we're thinking about physical conditioning, skeletal conditioning, movement conditioning, and cardio or breath conditioning, cardiopulmonary conditioning. When you are doing something like swing program, your heart rate could be 190, right? Yeah, you're pushing it. You're dead sprinting. That's fine, unless you're going to die. Don't die. But most people are nowhere near close to dying as they think that they are. But in the beginning, your swings like that, super high heart rate, you are replicating sprinting without having to leave your area, leave your place of training, which makes it more accessible for most people. And that's usually a very good thing. Sprinting is supposed to be very, very hard. One of the things you can do is drop all the way back down and start that cycle over again so that your rep count goes way back down. Give your heart a chance to catch up by repeating the cycle and building it back up. Kettlebells is super hard. It's super high heart rate. I used to get my heart rate into the 210, which is supposed to be way above max. When I first got into kettlebelling, and it was the only thing that would force you into that ridiculous level of heart rate. But that's not really ridiculous for anybody who's ever done martial arts or sparring. The second you get into a sparring match, your heart rate is that high, and it's probably that high as long as that match goes on, right? There's not a lot of 30-second sparring matches. They're usually 3 minutes or something like that. In BJJ currently, I think they're 5 minutes. Your goal is to figure out how to condition your heart or breathe better. In the last 3 years, I've been focusing on learning to breathe better, and my heart rate has gone way, way, way down. But I've been focusing on very long-term sets. But the point of the swing program is that you're going to force your heart rate up. There's cardio, there's abs, there's every muscle in your body. There are the physiological changes that start to come along with sprinting. This is one of the things that makes kettlebells so effective for the first 5 years of training, with even mild amounts of good planning. So start the cycle over again. Give your heart a chance to catch up. The same thing is true if you're doing clubs and your hands start to fail, right? Kettlebell is harder on the heart. Club is harder on the hands. The thing that's most likely to fail in kettlebells is your heart. The thing that's most likely to fail in clubs is your hand. Start the cycles over. Rebuild and let it go again. I'm a bit pixelated. I'm sorry, guys. It's the best we can do. This is what we got. It's a shame. It's really pretty out here. Christian Thierry. Love this name. Mobility question. Any preferred method to help people restore dorsiflexion range of movement? Not really. It's lots of clubs, for the most part, will help people restore dorsiflexion, but only if their foot is pointed straight ahead. Any type of turnout, it absolutely does not work anymore. The other thing that people can do is to put on toe spacers to realign their toes to get their foot to be more stable, and if it is pointed straight ahead. And then I always have people work on all the club stuff first, because it's a subtle amount of dorsiflexion and plantar flexion. And then there's a whole series of advanced drills later on, but I don't talk about them much. Most of them I stole from Pilates. Honestly, my foot movement is not the best. It hasn't been. I broke my foot doing martial arts when I was young. I've never had what you might call good feet. I've never had like dancer's feet or like aerialist feet. I do what's necessary to keep me out of pain, but I never pushed it super far into like dorsiflexion or plantar flexion. Like my plantar flexion is not the best. It looks like a martial artist plantar flexion, not like a ballerina's. But dorsiflexion, I've done a ton of work on that in therapy, because when I had 3 leg surgeries, my leg grew together, myofascial net locked up, and my foot locked up, and it was the talus joint in your ankle, and there were mobilization exercises where I had to grab it and push it and mobilize it and squeeze it back. You feel like you're going to pass out, and then clubbing causes the talus joint to move every rep you do: inside circle, outside circle, shield cast, mill, reverse mill, pendulum, all that stuff. So my dorsiflexion came back just by doing my club training. That's why I advocate it so much, and I talk so much, ridiculously much, about pointing your feet straight ahead. If your toes are squeezed like that from wearing shoes, then you definitely need to put on some type of toe spacers to try to get your toes back in the correct spot so that your ankle can actually do its job properly. Deconditioned question. I like the label decon question. Will the decon program have options for people to regress if they feel it's too much for them or too time consuming initially? The design for the deconditioned program, rolling wave. So day 1 is super short. It gets longer to day 5. The second week, it starts 2 minutes longer and it gets long. Week 3, it builds up. Week 4, it builds up. Every week starts easy, ends with a long workout. And it's a built wave. It's just a wave. That program, I've put a ton of thought into making that. The final workout of the final week is, I think, 43 minutes, if I remember correctly. What's 12 sets times 2 is 24 minutes of work with 9 warm-up. So that's 32 minutes plus cool down. Puts it in the 42, 43 minute range, I think. I'd have to look at it, but that's the math that goes into it. The whole program starts over. So it runs in 4 weeks, and then it repeats, and then it repeats, and then it repeats. And the goal of this is to give people downtime. Because if a program just starts hard, people are unlikely to do it. So it starts easy, and there's a giant, you should see the color coded editing list. It's done minute by minute. There's 20 of them, and it's all color coded minute to minute, so I can make sure everything is exactly correct. And there are a bunch of versions of it. So we're finishing the first version of it now, and then we are going to have it do a bunch of different types of available equipment as well. So there's going to be, I think, it'll start with two versions of available equipment, and then it will build, I think, to 6 or 7. 24 divided by 4, 6. 6 is what's on the editing list right now. It's a lot. That'll, once again, it's 1,000 hours of editing. Yeah. And I had a meeting about it last night with the editor. I saw initial videos from it 2 days ago. And then we will be doing some additional shooting, because I am that psycho who never gives up on a program, in Austin around the teaching that I'll be doing, not this weekend, but next weekend on it for that club and Mace seminar. We're going to shoot a bunch of other pieces to put in there. And I'm waiting on a piece of equipment from Ireland to show up. And I'm waiting on, we have an option for everything, as usual. I think I've thought about this way, way, way too much. But at this point, we're just going to get the first thing out, and then we're going to add to it. It's a crazy program. But I think it'll be very doable. I've given it to several people who are severely deconditioned or injured, injured military guy, injured horseback rider, and I'm just having them run versions of it and tell me what's not understandable so that we can make everything better as usual. Will the decon program have incline decline club work? No, it will not. Incline decline club work is not for deconditioned individuals at all. It is for advanced individuals who have run at least 3 weight cycles. Pushing that too soon is not a great idea. I've had some people do it, but if they are not focusing on pointing their foot straight ahead, it makes things worse, not better. So we will be, it's not going to be in the decon program, because I do not have faith that deconditioned people will have the awareness to make sure that they're doing it right, so that they don't end up doing more damage than good. Matthew Oliver, question, shoulder popping. I've been doing kettlebell presses in one hand club since last year. My shoulder has started popping. Other than adding some pulling, is there something else I can do? That is not nearly enough information to answer that question. I have no information. I have no video. Sorry, Matthew, on what you are doing. The one-handed clubs. I don't know what weight you're using. I don't know about it. I don't know what kettlebell presses. Are you doing clean and press? I don't have nearly enough information to answer that question in any way. If your shoulder is popping, do you have a previous injury? If so, go see a massage therapist to figure out what's wrong with your shoulder. If it's popping, it's probably rolling forward too far. It's the best I can do with that level of information. Carmen, there's Carmen's question. Carmen is amazing. Carmen came to our London seminar. She was a badass, and her data tracking sheets are a thing of beauty. Mace overhead press question, Warrior 1, 2. Assuming 8X system is plenty heavy, is it worth dedicating a Tetris block to this in order to improve kettlebell strict pressing structure? How would you program it? No. You can do Mace presses. That would be, and really, unless you have extraordinarily mobile shoulders and thoracic extension, that is an arc handle to an 8X Mace handle. Doing an 8X club handle, put your hands too close together, people are probably going to push their spine into a weird spot. Unless they're doing tiger claw grip. If they're doing tiger claw grip as opposed to over palms facing away grip. But if you're doing tiger claw grip, you're not really getting the benefit from it. Doing an 8X arc unless you're using a really heavy weight. Let me correct that. Is it going to help your kettlebell presses? Maybe. Kettlebell presses are probably the absolute best version of overhead pressing that I know of. They're the most controllable. Doing club, mace, or arc presses, if you're holding, the further you hold to one side. So if you're holding, you want to get more weight on the outside to get more roll or counter roll in the system. Is it worth dedicating a whole cycle to? I don't think so. There are a ton of people who do it, but they don't do it from Warrior 1, Warrior 2, because Warrior 1, Warrior 2 is going to change the way your spine works. It would be done from a standing position. Um, I don't really see the point in it, but you can do whatever you want. People will probably find a bunch of stuff that I don't know. Um, and if you have more time in your schedule, then absolutely you can do whatever you want. Is it a fun cycle to run? Like the step out one? I would make that a part of a greater program. I would not make that its own dedicated strength training program. That is a high complexity movement. Therefore, I would not put it in a strength training format. The odds of people messing it up are kind of high. Carmen again, Wildman, personal question. Okay, Carmen. What specific programming do you think contributed most to you looking more like Hercules now than ever before? I have no idea. I don't really look that great right now. Because I just don't care about it as much. Like when I used to work on movies, we used to have time. And it was a goal, so we did it. During COVID, I have had absolutely no focus on any type of looking good program. I just do stuff that's entertaining and doable wherever I've been at in the least amount of space. The things that changed me in the last couple of years were really focusing on marathoning, and obviously I've dedicated a lot of time to talking about marathoning and made sure that companies made equipment for marathoning, and companies are going to continue to produce better equipment for that idea. I think that a real Herculean program is going to be based on these Great Lakes Jira monster clubs. That's going to be just a game changer. Because I didn't really have the big weights to focus on building strength or size. It's just my strength and size. I actually got much smaller in the last couple of years. Like my arms, I think I lost like 2 or 3 inches off of my arms right now, compared to when I was like working in London. I couldn't even get my arms in this jacket anymore. I had to get a whole new jacket to get my arms in them. I think pushing a Herculean physique in the next 6 months to a year, 2 years is going to be fun with the Great Lakes Jira equipment, because I'm actually going to be able to focus more on leverage strength training now that I have a place to put, 1,000 pounds worth of clubs. And I'll have more time to do it, hopefully, and much better internet to film it. The whole point of getting a warehouse in LA is not because I like LA, it's because it has better internet. KD, health question. Thoughts on conclusions and CTE, causes and prevention. Concussions and CTE. Does neck mobility help? Also on the topic of NFL football, I think, yes, mobility 100% helps. That's why it's in every martial art that's even halfway decent. That's why it's in martial arts and traditional martial arts in every culture around the world. Neck mobility matters, and neck strength matters. Keeping people from getting different types of injuries is very heavily based on neck. The faster you change directions or the more you get hit, the more important that becomes. I haven't focused on it in the last several years because I'm not doing any fast moves to a sudden stop and I'm not getting hit. But neck mobility is something that will always help you prevent injury. All mobility helps you prevent injury. A rock bottom squat definitely helps you prevent injury. Shoulder mobility definitely helps you prevent injury. You can absorb more force if your body is sharing load more effectively, not just in lines, but in rotation, in torsion. So the better your neck moves by far, and the stronger your neck is, that would definitely help with things like that. I think there's probably pretty good, well understood science around that. Here's a great one. Pythonic inertia, lunge question. Question from Ireland. Do you think the static lunge is an appropriate exercise for an overweight, deconditioned person? Any ideas for modification to have poor balance? A static lunge is the most important lunge that you can do. If you are overweight or deconditioned, you should not be doing it. Deconditioned implies you are deconditioned. You need to add standing condition first. That means presses, that means deadlifts, that means squats, that means 360s, that means shield casts, that means inside circles, that means outside circles. All of that stuff absolutely needs to happen before you add static lunge. If you are deconditioned, if you are overweight, it's fine. You're just doing a lunge with a sandbag on your shoulders. You're going to lower your numbers or you're going to slow down in an amount of time. Deconditioned, no, stand up first. Point your feet straight ahead. Make the arches of your feet work. The question is, when does somebody stop being deconditioned and start to become mildly conditioned? That is an answer I cannot answer. That is a question I cannot answer over the internet. There's a reason that my programs start in a very specific way. They start with lunges, or no, they start with swings, 2 feet not moving, clean and press, 2 feet not moving. You'll notice there's no lunges in either of those programs, right? You'll notice the lunge comes in program 3 in Turkish Get Up Master, because I expect people to be very conditioned at standing up before I put them in a split stance. It should be later in training. You should not be deconditioned. To me, deconditioned means you were in a hospital bed or you had surgery. You should not be doing split lunges at that point. That is a bad idea, and you should probably not listen to people who have deconditioned people do that. If they can't stand up, they should not be doing static lunges. TGU Master Class question. Any guidelines for deciding between TGU and stop TGU for the weekly? Alternate them. Alternate. I just assume people should alternate. Do one week, do the other week. That changes everything to add start stop to your Turkish get up. It changes the load, it changes the pacing, it changes the breathing pattern. So alternate them. Basis of strength. With longer, more complex moves, do you count completed reps that run over the 30-second mark? Yes. If it's at 32 seconds and you finish your movement, count it. Yes. You only count completed reps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? If you're counting stepping, shield cast should be easy. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, count the completed reps. You're not counting fractions of reps. You count completed reps. If it takes you 2 seconds to put the club down, if you're 2 seconds over, count the rep. If you go 10 seconds over, you're not inside the program anymore. You're not adhering to the program. The goal is to get you to adhere to the program, but picking it up and putting it down take time. Count your completed reps. Slam ball question. Is there another slam ball program in the works? Absolutely. 6 to 10. Yeah, we wrote 1 to 15. We just didn't shoot it because I didn't think anybody really cared that much about it. I really liked the slam ball program. I loved it. That was one of my favorite ones during lockdown. Maybe that contributed to my Herculean physique when I was in lockdown. I was doing it in Pine Mountain Club, California, up in the mountains there. There's this little town, not really a town, it's a bunch of houses in the mountains, but California goes from like desert to like alpine forest in this one weird spot. Super cool. Nobody knows it's there. And the snow stays up there for quite a long time. I really liked it when I was staying up there for like 2 or 3 months during, what was that, 2021. I was doing slam ball like crazy. Slam ball program is fun, and I was working on the 6 to 10 as well, and 11 to 15. We just didn't shoot them. I got to figure out where the notes for that are. They're someplace. I have a much better filing system now. Question: you don't seem to talk too much about running, jogging, or am I wrong? You're right, I don't. Michael Bores, how do you run long distance without harming knees over long term? Posture, technique, shoes, terrain. I don't run much anymore. I ripped my leg in half. I have very little tissue left inside of my leg. So I used to run 10 miles all the time. Right now, I'm not going to run 10 miles a day, certainly not in the city. And I don't really have a good place to run like I used to growing up. I used to run in the forest barefoot or closer to barefoot, thin boots, moccasins, Vietnam combat boots, that kind of thing. My running got infinitely better when I started doing kettlebelling and clubbing. Infinitely better. My running skyrocketed. Everything I did skyrocketed when I first got into kettlebelling. I'd already been doing martial arts for half of my life and I'd been doing circus for a couple of years, and I got into kettlebelling, and running got way easier, infinitely easier. Heavy club swinging, same thing. I don't talk about running much because I don't run a lot anymore. I desperately need stem cells in my leg, or I probably won't be doing anything in 5 years. No matter how much and how good my training is and how well designed it is, there is a mechanical limit on what your body can take. And I am getting super close to it. So I don't do things like run. I certainly don't run on concrete on roads at all. Maybe if I went full barefoot, I could just start over, because it will change the way your foot strike happens and it would get a lot better. But I used to love to run in the forest, but I don't really have a forest to run in anymore, so I don't run a lot. I also dropped jump roping. I love jump roping. I dropped jump roping because you're thinking, what? You could be doing 100 skips in a minute in 20 minutes. How many impacts is that? Jump roping is fantastic for your body if your body is in the condition to handle it. But until I can get stem cells in my leg, I'm just not going to talk about it much because I'm not doing it much. My running technique is not good. I haven't run since 2019. In 2019, I was working on a movie, and we wrote just a sick running program, just an absolutely amazing running program. And we are chucking. I mean, we were doing treadmill sprints for a minute at like 21 miles per hour or something. I mean, we were killing it. Is that accurate, or was that kilometers? That was probably kilometers. I was in Romania. It was probably kilometers. It was kilometers, which makes a lot more sense. 21 miles per hour is insanely fast. But in kilometers, for short bursts, we were definitely sprinting for that amount of time. And our running technique was great at that point. Me and my client, we were doing barefoot sprinting technique on treadmills because we could take it around to sets with us and everything like that. But I don't talk about it much right now because I desperately need stem cells in my leg, or not going to be doing a lot of anything coming up soon. That's on my list for the next 2 years. Once I get through my family's health issues, which are more important than mine, then I will be seeking stem cell treatment. If anybody has any great cues on stem cell treatment, I would love stem cell treatment. I've been waiting on it since 2008. And we all need stem cells. I need stem cells desperately bad in my knee. One of the reasons I got into biochemical engineering was to work in the stem cell field originally, and it's been illegal. A lot of that study has been illegal since George Bush. So not a lot of advancement has been made in America, which is really sad because we tend to have the absolute most innovation in the medical field. But yeah, I need stem cells before I start doing a lot of running again. I would love to run again the way I used to run. Hopefully I'm going to get I would like to design a new treadmill if I ever get around to it, if I have the time to do it, with uneven surfaces specifically for barefoot treadmill running. But it's just someday. Mace question: will 360 plus horse stance be one of your 6-week Mace programs? Sure, we can shoot a segment of that. Yeah, I mean, I've been doing it. So right now I've been running the 8X arc with the weight plates from the adjustable kettlebells in it. Today I had on 13.5K. What's 13.5K? Let me get out my calculator. 13.5K times 2.2 is 29 pounds, plus 25 pounds, plus 8, plus 0.5, puts us at 63.2. I was running 63.2 pounds today on the arc for a 360 high horse stance. I'm finding that with the ultra heavy weights, the horse stance is definitely the way to go for 360 training. So I am definitely going to add it into the Mace 360 program. And side effect is you're just getting a lot of extra added benefit in a athletically useful or martial stance. Practice it too. We don't need to invent new stuff. We can just do all the stuff that people have been doing for 5,000 years. How about a spider-shaped grid on the ceiling of the new warehouse? Question from Michael Webb. Works for spiders. Sure. Are you talking about a rope grid or a light grid? I don't know. Jeff Sancrisia. What is the key to the kettlebell grip that doesn't bang the crap out of your wrist? Is it a strong grip that produces the revolve around the hand? No, it is grace and elegance that produces the movement around your hand. People over grip, and then the kettlebell doesn't move freely. You have to let go in order to succeed with kettlebells. You have to pull. The bottom is the hard part of the grip. As you transition to the top, you should barely be holding on at all. You should figure out how to move your hand into the correct spot. If you are banging your wrist, you have not yet mastered grace. This is part of the reason I tell people to cross train with clubs, because people who go to the gym tend to have one power. It's all power, or it's all back, but there's no grace. Something that you learn in martial arts. That's the point of martial arts, is to teach people grace. Efficiency is grace. Efficiency, the unification of structure, breathing, and movement, is grace. The reason I tell people about clubs is because you have to figure out fast, slow, fast, or fast, or slow, fast, slow, so that people start to learn grace so that they can start to apply it to their kettlebell catch. The kettlebell catch, kettlebell is fast at the bottom, fast in the middle, and it's slow at the top. The slowness, decelerating the weight, is how you don't beat yourself to death. If you're banging your wrist, you are coming to a hard, fast stop. Grace is the key to that. It means learning to adjust your speed and get to the correct angle. It's an annoying answer, I know. That's one of the reasons I tell people to cross train with Mace and clubs, is to trick people into getting grace so that their kettlebelling gets better. A lot of people do kettlebelling for years and never learn grace, and then they quit doing it. If you teach people clubs, Mace 360, shield cast, inside circle, outside circle, on accident, they tend to start learning grace, and then it tends to fall over into their kettlebell training. What do you think about isometric exercises like overcoming isometrics? Sean McShawn. I don't know what overcoming isometrics is. I know about isometrics because I read Bruce Lee's The Art of the Human Body in the 80s. Do you ever add any isometrics into your workouts? Do you think it's beneficial? Isometrics definitely have benefit. I just don't have time for them. If you have time, put in isometrics. Isometrics is holding a locked position. I think it's a great idea for a culture that's the reverse of ours. Our culture is, for the most part, sedentary and seated. So what do we need to do when we're working out? We need to move the entire time. Isometrics work great for the opposite of that. Cultures that don't use as much, or cultures further in the past where absolutely everything required an action of the human body. All right. Without machines to take over the work, people had to do all the work themselves. For them, isometrics was a much, much, much better plan. An isometric deadlift. I mean, I think if you read Bruce Lee's The Art of the Human Body, you built the same thing that he had in there, which was a board that he stood on with an eye bolt through it and a chain with a adjustable clip on it, and you would practice your deadlifts at different heights, and you would pull against something that couldn't possibly move as hard as possible. Does it have benefit? Absolutely. Only if you also deadlift. There's a million ways to train. Does it have benefit? Yes. Is there a great time efficient way to do it? Not that I know about. What's better, isometrics or Mace 360? Mace 360. What's better, isometrics or mills? What's better, isometrics or snatches? Isometrics is great, and I've used versions of it in martial arts training. The midpoint of a punch being in your mountain stance and extending out halfway through the punch and then leaning into it with your entire body to start to train your myofascial net. That's like the word of the day today. In order to integrate as hard as possible. Absolutely a good idea. I just don't talk about it all that much. But is it good? Yes, absolutely. There's a ton of science that says that it has benefit to it. For higher level athletes, 100%. I don't really add any isometrics into my workout right now. When I was in martial arts, when I was in Master Choice Shaolin School, we did isometrics all the time. You'd push against the wall for 5 minutes, sweating, dripping. One of the classic isometrics is isometric holds that you would hold. Stance training is isometric training. It's not pulling against a locked point. Those are two slightly different ideas. The classic one is stance training. The other one is position specific, pushing or pulling against something that doesn't move. Is it beneficial? Yes. Do you need an extremely solid wall or solid beam to do that with? Absolutely, yes. Once again, it's a question. Most people aren't going to be able to do that effectively without some MacGyvering. Jeff Sadiq. He's doing push-ups, pull-ups, swings, single arm club, as well as jump rope. Do you think I'm covering all bases? Never covering all bases, but you're covering a lot of bases. Yafir Sadiq. That's the name. Sorry, I missed the A on the first one. Guys. Push-ups, great. Are you making your push-ups more complex over time? Traveling push-ups, down dog push-ups, Shaolin push-ups, beast push-ups, cat crawl push-ups. Cat crawl, my favorite. Pull-ups. Are you doing just one type of pull-up? Are you doing pull-up to hand shift? Are you doing pull-up to full release? You'd be better off building up towards muscle ups than just doing pull-ups. Kettlebell swings, great. Single arm club, you're going to fix just by doing inside circle, outside circle. You're going to have an absolutely solid foundation. If you're jumping rope, you're really killing it at this point. I miss jump rope quite a bit. Jumping rope is amazing. It's an absolute basics of agility, but are you covering all bases? So if we want to think about covering all bases, let's think about covering all bases. You need to pick bases. Are you covering all the basic human movements? No, because you're not running, right? So are you covering the basis of running? No, but are you preparing your body to run by doing jump rope? Yes. Yawing, rotation of the spine, doing single arm club will prepare you for that. You have your basic movement chains for throwing and striking. Good. Swings, you have hip snap, probably endurance hip snap because it says swings, not deadlift. Push-ups, getting up off of the ground, but are you getting up off of the ground all the way? Are there burpees in there? And pull-ups. Pull-ups lead to climbing. Do you have an excellent, good general physical preparedness program? Yes, that is a good general physical preparedness program. But eventually, we all need to start to get more specific about human movement programs. Good question. Yafer Sadiq. Never can tell if I'm saying these right, but I think I'm saying that right. Marshall question from Maul. Your thoughts on sparring, 3 to 6 minutes, 2.5% to 70% combined with EMOM, every minute on the minute monster lifts for basics of defense strength program. Yeah, I think sparring or rolling in any way is good. The question is, how is it controlled? What you will develop is based on the rules that are set for the sparring session itself. Some sparring I see is not great. A lot of sparring is getting a lot better. Sparring's getting a lot better. Let's say that. Sparring is what people should be doing. I hope to go back to a martial arts class when I'm actually back in LA, and it will be amazing. I haven't been in a martial arts class in 3-4 years now, since before that 2019 movie. So I am not getting my unregulated effort, no matter how much you train. There is nothing like somebody not agreeing with you and trying to smack you in the face. Your monster lift program, snatch, clean, swing, lever 360. Somebody explain to me what a lever 360 is. Snatch. Is this a barbell or is it a kettlebell monster lift? Overall, the idea is good. I think that there should be Mace 360, so maybe that's what lever 360 is. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's a solid idea for basics of defense. That's a solid idea. Yeah, should work. I assume if you're going to some place where you're sparring, that they're actually also having you work on technique. Therefore, you're going to be getting better at something. Your sparring is your unregulated effort. Your monster lifts are probably short because you're putting out a lot of effort in your monster lifts, and your Mace 360s get you your basics of rotation and standing all the way up. Solid. YouTube Punk is back. Equipment question. What do you bring when traveling throughout Europe? Clubs, hydrocore, so right. When I just went to London and Scotland, I took a Pelican 1510 case with an 8X handle in it, some 8X weights, about 25 pounds. The hydrocore Hydra, which I am bolting onto my 8X arc handle with an insert. And so that's exactly what I brought. My case weighed in at 46 pounds. So it was under 50 pounds is what most of the international flights are. And it's on wheels and it's a small case. So I don't have to go to special luggage or special equipment. It comes out on the normal belt, which saves me a lot of time. And it's a lot easier to pack around. That's my current new travel kit. That travel kit is sitting in Los Angeles right now at the new warehouse. I have a duplicate of it here. Will I be taking that? I don't need to take that to Austin because Austin has all the stuff there already. But that will be the case that goes to Italy with me. So I'm going to Austin, to Los Angeles, to Italy, and then back to Los Angeles, probably back to Ohio, back to Los Angeles. Yeah, that should be 46 pounds, and there's enough space in there for a pair of Fayaway shoes and a pair of shorts. And that should cover you for a long time. I really like combining the 8X. I prefer the arc handle if at all possible, but I can't get it in any of the Pelican cases I have without it having way too much room. So I've gone to you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make a custom handle just for this, just the exact length of the 1510. I'm going to do that. It's a great idea. Can you talk about using clubs to develop rotator cuff muscles? Garin L. Yeah. All your rotator cuff muscles are covered by every club swinging activity. If you look at an inside circle and you are pushing across and you are pulling to balance and rotating across, you will notice that this movement right here looks exactly like rotator cuff rehab exercises that you would do with a band that a physical therapist would get you. Outside circles, the exact opposite of that. You should do both. So you are stabilizing on one side, stabilizing on the other side, rotating from one way, rotating the other way. Those exercises are specifically picked to fix rotator cuff issues because 60% of the people have rotator cuff issues. And then shield cast is the other series of rotator cuff issues. Just by practicing the basics and doing it in a logical way, starting with a lightweight, building up to a heavyweight, most people will fix the majority of their rotator cuff issues. The movements look exactly like physical therapy. The difference is you're doing them with a real thing instead of with a band. Bands aren't real. Are bands fun? Yes. Can they do a lot of cool stuff? Yes. Are they real? No. They are not a real movement. They are a replica of a real movement. I should be more specific. Ben Samish, question. What would you advise someone to do if they were interested in becoming a personal trainer and were starting at zero? I would tell you to do my training programs. My training programs are literally exactly what you should do with clients, and you should do them with yourself before you get any clients. If you are a personal trainer at a big box gym and you added 10 minutes of proper swing training twice a week to your clients' programs, you would be regarded as a genius in your gym because absolutely you could throw tennis balls at people for the rest of the hour and they would still get substantially better. They would stand up better, they would get less pain, their endurance would go up. The swing program came out first because it is the most important one. If you are working alone by yourself, for yourself, you should do the swing program. It is the most bang for your buck. If you are a personal trainer and people are giving you money to guarantee they get results, you should do the swing program. You should do it with 10 weights yourself, all versions of it, so that you know exactly how to coach it to other people. But if you do all the stuff they want you to do in a gym and use all the machines and do their NASM protocol and you just snuck in 10 minutes of swings twice a week, you would absolutely improve your client's life in every way. If you have clients coming in, add the clean and press program because once again, it ends up usually being a short thing. You have a clean and press program, you bring them in, you do your mobility, you do your National Academy of Sports Medicine approved warm up, your hip bridges, your W's, your Supermans, all that other stuff that you do, put them directly into the swing program one day. If they're coming in 4 days a week, put them into the clean and press next, right? That clean and press program runs from 9 minutes to 20 minutes at the simple level. Start with a lightweight, build up to a heavyweight. That's going to leave you 20 minutes to take them over and put them on the hammer strength machine and start cranking on chest and back. Hammer strength machine, start with a lightweight, write down their reps and their numbers, have them do it for 30 seconds, have them do a 30-second break, flip them to a back machine. Back and chest are usually directly across from each other for a reason in a gym. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes you're going to have to make a walk, but drop something over there, a water bottle, so you can go back and forth. And so if you do your swing program and then you just hammer them on basic machine stuff, people are going to think you're a genius because you will be a genius because you're focusing on the most important thing, getting people to stand all the way up. And then you're going to give people what the gym wants you to give them, which is a bunch of machine stuff. Awesome. Absolutely. You should do that stuff. If you have more control and the people who work at your gym are less terrified of it, get them into the basis of strength program and start running that twice a week. Any one of the programs I do could be dropped into a gym training program for somebody who wants to become a personal trainer, and you can start to guarantee results. If you're going to be a personal trainer, you also should get a job at a big box gym so you know what they're talking about, why they're talking about it. A lot of the stuff that they talk about is ridiculous, but they do have a business model. If you're a personal trainer, your job personally, you should take it upon yourself to make sure your clients get what they want and get educated. Most trainers do not do that. Most trainers are not trying to educate people. They're trying to create dependency. We are not trying to create dependency here. We're trying to create independent people who understand what, how, and why to stay in shape so that they can stay in shape forever. Programming question. Can you create two versions of your warm-up, cooldowns, and exercise timers? Yes. One with and without audio? Sure. Easy. YouTube Punk training question. What paths do you program for clients who are conditioned fit? Club, vanity, pretty training. Wondering what those strategy approach is with your clients. That's on a case-by-case basis. Almost nobody who shows up is what I would consider conditioned and fit. I have a lot of people who think that they are conditioned and fit, who are not conditioned and fit, because they have had a lot of trainers lie to them and tell them that they're conditioned and fit. Usually you can teach club to anybody, almost anybody who's coming from a gym program. If you put them into clubs, you're going to hit a whole new series of ideas that they have never encountered before, and you will drastically improve their life on accident. Even really fit people. I was working, one of my buddies is a competitive CrossFit athlete. And I show up when I'm in LA, I show up at Gambate Fitness and work out with them a lot, or I used to work out there all the time. I have not a lot recently, but I show up and they have a little On It 20-pound club, and I pick it up and I do 10 minutes nonstop just to warm up, feel good, get all my joints working. And this guy's got, a 300-pound barbell squat, or no, clean. Guy's strong, competitive athlete. And what can I teach that guy? I can teach him club. He could not single-hand a 20 to save his life because that's not what they're conditioned to do. So, you can take almost anybody. If I was going to work with anybody, I would teach them heavy club. If it was like the NBA or the NFL, I would teach them heavy club. When I was in Scotland, I had a professional American football player message me, and what I teach him, taught him club. Is chiropractor legit? Yeah, if your bones are out of place, somebody should put them back. Is it a perfect system? No. Is it a complementary system? Absolutely yes. That is also a question from Yafir Sadiq. Chiropractor legit? Depends on your chiropractor, as with everything else. But yes, if you have bones out of place, putting them back in place, usually chiropractor combined with some type of good body work is even better. Oftentimes body work will solve chiropractic issues just by releasing tension. Thumbs back or forward on double swings. I used to be a thumbs back on double swings, but in the last 3 years, I've moved to thumbs forward on double swings. But I'm doing efficiency style now instead of hard style. If doing hard style, I would say thumbs back. If you're pushing for efficiency, I would say thumbs forward. But only if you have extremely well conditioned elbows and your technique is good. If not, if you trash yourself, your technique wasn't good. Adventure question from Maul. Ever snowboard? Want to know any good skaters? I love snowboarding. I always wanted to do it, but I was too poor growing up to do it. Also in Ohio, there's like one hill that's 700 feet high where you can do it. And that's where all the rich kids went to snowboard. I went snowboarding, I think, once in high school. I went snowboarding once in college, economic reasons. And a couple years ago, I was working on a movie with a very well-known actor, and he had gotten very heavily into snowboarding. He's an English actor, and he just talking about snowboarding convinced me that I should take up snowboarding. Before lockdown, I think 2017, 2018, maybe 2019, I think in March of those years, I went to Whistler in Canada and stayed for a week on the hill and went and got snowboarding lessons. I love it. I think it's awesome. I think Whistler is probably the coolest snowboarding place I've ever seen because you can go right down um, and snowboard right off into your hotel. Super cool. Snowboarding is exactly like endurance side hip snap, inside pendulum, outside pendulum for 45 minutes and alternating back and forth between those two things. Snowboarding is awesome. I would love to do a lot more of it, but lockdown kept any of that from happening for the last 3 years. So maybe coming up this fall, I'll actually be able to get back into it and do it. I have a snowboard in the back of the truck. Somebody gave me a snowboard my size like a year ago or something and said, "Here, have this snowboard." And I did not get out at all this year due to family issues. Stunt mug training. Question part 1. It would be cool if you talked with Mark Ripatow. He thinks the barbell is king and everything else is trash. But he also says that strength training and sports practice are separate. That's great. I don't really feel the need to talk to somebody who doesn't think that what I do has any value. I just don't think we're going to see eye to eye. Is he correct? Is the barbell king for strength? Yes. Is everything else trash? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I respect Ripatow. Great guys, done a lot of great programming over the years, but I don't like this combative type of training. It's exclusionary. I'm not into people saying I don't think that it's true. Barbells did not exist for all of human history and people were monsters. Is the barbell one of the absolute best things in the modern world for the most people? Yes. Are clubs better for rotation strength? Absolutely. It's a question of value systems. What do you value and why? I don't value absolute strength. I knew a guy who got really into Ripatow and he got really negative on kettlebells and everything else. And the idea is that if you deadlift, that you can just get conditioning. Conditioning is easy. I don't think that's true at all, even a little bit. And that guy was super ripped and he started doing Ripatow's training and he gained 40 pounds and he got a big belly and he started looking like a power lifter. And he said, "Oh, well, you're just going to get conditioning when you need it." I don't think that's true. I think conditioning is a maintained idea and that you should maintain something over time. So is Ripatow awesome? Absolutely. Love him. I just don't agree with the idea that there's no other good ideas out there. And I don't like the exclusionary way of saying that kettlebells are useless. Go look at Denis Vasilev lift and tell me that that guy is not an absolute monster. That guy is probably overall the fittest guy I have ever seen. Kettlebell sport practitioners, I do think are the best of worlds. Um, if you can pick up 2 kettlebells and not put them down for 10 minutes, is your absolute strength as high? No. Is your endurance strength high? Um, I just don't super agree with that philosophy on training. A second part of that question, if someone doesn't do sports, they would need to include kettlebell and clubs in order to get that rotational movement covered. Sure, absolutely. Could you do Mark Ripatow's basis of strength program twice a week? I don't remember how he breaks it up. It's not a super long program at all, because it's focused on super duper duper heavy lifting, barbell back squat. My buddy was doing it in LA. I just didn't care for the training. I'd much rather do Mace 360s. It's easier to access. Yes, if you don't play sport, then you absolutely have to do some other type of rotational movement. I've just seen so many people say Ripatow says you only barbell. They only barbell and their health plummets through the floor because they think that they just getting strong is going to make them good at everything. That is not true. Strength is specific. Because you can deadlift 600 pounds does not mean you can climb a rope in any way. I've seen I was talking to a guy just in LA the last time I was there 2 weeks ago, professional fighter, right? Monster, 280 pounds, right? Beast man, can't climb a rope to save his life. I just don't agree with the philosophy overall. Is he a great trainer? Absolutely. Has he done a lot? Yes. But I think that um, we should all learn from each other. We should all learn from history. And I think history didn't have a lot of barbells. There's a lot of good ideas out there. Martial arts question. How can you tell if Shaolin Kung Fu Dojo is legit? What red flags do you look for? Almost all of them are not legit anymore. Shaolin is almost all based on forms. If it's a Shaolin school that also does Sanda, that would be the raddest place to go. Sanda, am I saying that right? Yeah, Sanda. Sanda is the kickboxing version from Shaolin. It's Muay Thai with takedowns. Uh, um, yeah. Forms are awesome. I absolutely love forms for their beauty and more importantly for they were a way for people to remember and codify movement as if people were remembering poetry. So people used to just memorize books, right? Your great storytellers in the ancient world, the Odyssey, the Iliad were poems that were sung. And people could remember these things because of the way that the poem was structured. Martial arts forms are very similar. They are poems of movement that have stood for hundreds of years. The problem is people have forgotten what the words mean. This is very similar to something you see with people who memorize the Quran. And people memorize the Quran, but they don't speak the language. So they memorize it perfectly, but they don't know what any of the words mean. This is something that happens in the Islamic world, and they have like Quran recitation competitions, right? But they don't even speak the language, so even though they know the Quran, they don't understand uh, what any of it means. There are all these things like this epic poems, the poems of Gilgamesh, Beowulf, all these things are poems and things that were supposed to be memorized and were memorized in a specific way. Forms are the same idea. But I find that most people in the modern world have no clue what the forms mean. And more importantly, they have never been taught a way to experimentally determine what the forms mean. Um, I read a book in 2005, had a green cover on it with a guy doing Shaolin back fist on it. And it was all about how do you interpret and understand forms. And that for every movement inside of a form, there are three interpretations for each thing: strikes, throws, and come alongs, or something like that. Come alongs, carries, and takedowns. So if uh you see kung fu being trained again properly. For years it wasn't trained properly in China that I know about. Maybe it's just the advent of the internet is showing us again, or maybe the internet has provided a reason for people to actually understand their stuff again because they're being subjected to scrutiny from everywhere in the world. Like a lot of the low dip movements in Mantis are leg hooks and pulls that are takedowns. And I don't see them being taught that way. But if you go to a Shaolin school and they also teach Sanda, go to that school. If they go to a Sanda school, go to that. So you would think about that as two sides of the same coin. You would think about unregulated effort and human interaction being on one side, being Sanda, and the martial art form being the athletic perfection of movement on the other side, and having a way for people to permanently remember it. Uh, so I suppose that would be it. Nate Wink, here's a question. He does single arm clubs, a club in one hand, and double clubs, a club in two hands, but no two hands on one club. Is he missing out? I think so. So there are three things you can do with clubs, right? The one we talk about the most is two hands on one club. The second one is one club in one hand because you can change hands while one hand is resting and you can learn to not put the weight down. One club in each hand tends to be closer towards fancy Indian club swinging or learning to not put weights down for longer periods of time, but it requires much, much, much lighter weights in order to do that. There are Indian versions of that, double clubbing two heavy clubs and doing small sets, 5 sets of 5 on each side, 5 sets of 10 on each side. You'll see a lot of that. And those training ideas are based on what clubs you have available to you. Do I think you're missing out by not doing two hands on one heavy club? Yes, I do. I think that you're missing out on a lot of core rotationary movements that you don't mimic with double club. Great questions, guys. We're at an hour 30 already. My God. Adam Marples, how to stretch shoulders after club bells. Puppy dog stretch on a box. Short answer. Felix Joseph is kind of a barbell bodybuilding question. Should someone in their 50s who has previously done barbell hypertrophy program focus on mobility, strength, or endurance with the Tetris of training? You should focus on mobility and club training. Barbells move in straight lines, straight up and down, right? What they don't have is rotation of the spine. So you should focus on rotation of the spine. That could be Mace, that could be basis of strength, two-handed club training for sure, and the mobility that goes along with that. Absolutely, 100%. Anyway, injury question. Are the kettlebell windmill, kind of getting some wind out here now, are the kettlebell windmill TGU best exercises for engaging the QL as an accessory muscle? Fighting through QL scar tissue mobility drills aren't as helpful as I hope. Yeah, so TGU, there's a bunch of breakdowns, and they're all in the TGU master program of like kneeling, half kneeling clean and press, half kneeling windmill to elbow. And those are all breakdown versions to really get people towards a standing windmill or a standing side press or a standing bent press. You should start with a lightweight, obviously, and stay below the level at which that scar tissue is going to freak out. But that does help people mobilize their spine quite a bit. And of course, I would throw in club training because that will activate the QL hundreds of times at a super low level to make sure that it's communicating effectively and that it's equally strong on both sides of your spine. Katie, club question. You talk, the dogs are out. You talk of mill squat being a hard gainer program. What if you are somebody who doesn't want to get much bigger and wants longevity and strength? It doesn't matter. You're a hard gainer program. So there are a lot of people who are hard gainers, and hard gainers are it's a gym word that's been made up by people who don't understand training. For the most part, generalization. A hard gainer is somebody who apparently works out but doesn't get what they want out of training. And so the phrase hard gainer program came from telling people to focus on the things that were the most likely to affect their overall skeletal structure. Deadlift, squat, press. They use the most muscles in the least amount of time and the most evenly, as opposed to something like a hammer strength chest machine or doing push-ups, right? Push-ups are great, but if people are not getting the type of overall athletic development that they want, then you need something that integrates the body athletically. A hard gainer program, you can either add muscle or you can just add athleticism. You will get longevity and strength no matter what with a mill squat program. It is a hard gainer longevity strength program. It's all the things at one time. That's why it shows up in history over and over and over again in cultures separated by thousands of years and thousands of miles. It's because the idea always works. Jeremy McCon, stream looks good to him. Okay, so some people are pixelated, some people are not. Dan John will tell you that kettlebells will increase your deadlift. He's absolutely correct on that because you are doing the submaximal hip snap or endurance hip snap. So you're taking a submaximal weight and moving it 20 times. It does have an effect on your overall max. Not a straight line. At some point, they start to dip past each other, but absolutely. Ripetow's starting strength program is a 3 time per week heavy, light, medium barbell novice program. Yeah, my buddy was doing that one. Um, Great program. I want to move a lot more. Um, I want to do a lot more rotation. I need rotation. I've been injured a lot. I need a lot more rotation in my joints in order to maintain health and longevity. Question from Felix. After a knee injury, has been doing kettlebell 26-pound single clean and press. Great. FSQU, bent row 5x5, swing 5x10, left, right. Trying to do it without putting the bell down. So far, getting to 3, then rest for 45 seconds. Do I have thoughts on that? I think you should do the programs. Oh, look at this. We got a big RV in the back. Felix. Wow, that's really loud. Must be the horse guys going to getting ready for horse stuff. Knee injury. Clean and press. Okay, good. FSQU. Not quite sure what that is. Bent row. I don't know what a bent row is. Is that a bent over row? Is that a row? Is that a like? I'm not quite sure. 5x5. What you should be focused on after an injury is setting the weight down in between sets. It sounds to me like what you're doing is trying to build endurance with a bunch of stuff that's you should probably be focusing on strength. You should probably be focusing on 5 sets of 5, but putting the weight down and going up in weight. If you're trying to do it without putting the weight down, then you are pushing towards failure. As you're pushing towards failure, your form is getting worse, not better. As it's getting worse, you're dipping into injury movement patterns in order to accomplish the task. So I would say the only thing that you should do for endurance if you have a knee injury is inside circles, outside circles, and field cast because they are standing up, they are super submaximal, and they are rotating your knee. The other stuff should be relegated back into strength training. And I think that you should be doing club stuff for your knee. Oh, FSQU is front squat. That is not how I write front squat, but that's okay. Front squats. I think you should be doing deck squats. I think you should be doing elevated deck squats. Um, for sure. Front squats, if you have a bad knee issue, if one knee is bending more than another, your spine is going to twist and rotate. Your hips are going to be at a different height. I think you should do deck squats. Absolutely, for sure. 100%. I think you should start with a high deck and you should move it down slightly over time as your knee gets better. And I think you should control it by putting your knees all the way together so your knees can't collapse in. I think you should point your feet straight ahead. Yeah. Will Burke, just starting with heavy clubs. Bought the spacers for the Wildman 8X club, 15-pound seams to swing much heavier with spacers. Yes, because the lever is longer. Should I go lighter than 15 pounds? Starting recommendation. I don't know. You tell me. The point is to put the spacers on there and make a weight. The longer the lever, the harder it is because the more you have to end up in the right spot. Should you go heavier? I have no idea. I have no idea how old you are or what you look like or what your previous level of conditioning is. You guys have to determine what your own starting weight is err on the side of starting lighter, especially if you have an 8X. There's no reason not to start lighter if you have an 8X and get your technique better and better and better. Absolutely no reason at all not to do a couple of weeks with a lighter weight and then start over going up in weight. That is literally the point of the 8X, is that you can start light, work on your technique, and build up over time. So if you're asking me the question, if you should start lighter, go ahead, probably start lighter. I think you've answered that question. Recovery stretching recommendations for 50 plus. Stretch for 2 to 3 minutes for every single stretch. Focus on extension of the spine, flexion of the spine, hamstring stretch, calf stretch, and rotation of the spine. Lee Savage. Is there a single arm club training program, or should I follow the two-handed club program with one arm? There is a single arm club program. It has not been finished editing yet. CJA likes the kettlebell armor complex, kettlebell swings, and simple stuff that you can repeat over and over again. Any recommendation on a program that includes those moves daily or almost daily? Yeah, I made tons of I made videos on that. I made a whole series of videos on that. Armor complex twice a week, kettlebell swing program twice a week, clean and press program twice a week. Problem solved. Yeah, that's 6 days a week. Alternate heavy, light, back and forth with each one of those things. There's at least 5 to 10 videos on that topic in the Nerd Math playlist. All right, guys, this has been a long time. I've got to go run and trim around the fence before the rain comes in. So we will come back next week and answer more questions. Thank you guys for the questions. Questions are good as always. The whole point of asking questions is that you need to understand what you don't know so that you can understand what you do know. You ask questions, we talk about it. My answers get better and shorter the more I answer questions, which means I understand the topics even better. And the questions get more advanced over time. We had some really good questions today. Thank you guys so much for bringing your questions. Thoughtful questions is always what we are looking for. Lots of programming questions, always good. The goal is for everybody to understand programming. We have a whole giant series of playlist videos on that on YouTube where we talk a lot about programming, heavy, light, how to lay things out. I don't know how many videos are in that playlist, but there's got to be 30 or 40 in there. Think of that as almost a master's degree in training from a layman's perspective. But the concept of heavy light carries through that whole idea. The more you understand the concept of heavy light, the better this whole thing is going to get. The goal is for everybody to get better all the time. And we will come back next week, and we are going to go out in the field. We're going to fire up the tractor. We're going to start moving some compost around, and we are going to trim the fence line. Have a good day, guys.